everybody, welcome back to the Texas NORML podcast. It is Monday, February 17th, and you are tuned into episode 4. This week, we are going to dive into the science behind this plant. Before we do that, however, I want to give a big shout out to our sponsor and video service provider, Focus Lens Media. Focus Lens Media provides professional video services at affordable prices. Please go check them out, give them some love. They're at focuslensmedia.com. You can also find them on Facebook and on YouTube. So go like, share, follow, and subscribe to Focus Lens Media.
And while you're out there in the social media land, you should also do the same for us. Like, follow, share, subscribe to Texas NORML Podcast. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, all the socials. We're at Texas NORML Pod, and you should definitely go subscribe.
Also, be sure to reach out to us with any questions, comments, concerns, or ideas that you may have. You can email us at podcast@texasnormal.org. We'd love to hear from you. So now, let's talk some science.
Yeah, let's be real. Oftentimes, the actual science on how this issue plays out has zero role in how the Texas legislature actually makes a law about it.
That's true. Lawmakers like to talk about hemp as if they're two different plants, but really they're the same thing.
Yeah, it's not two plants. I can't stress that enough. There's really not a plant difference between hemp and marijuana.
Well, don't tell everyone.
Okay, we'll keep that under our hats. So look, I'll be the first to admit that in the last few years, pot went and got a little complicated. If you're over a certain age, you may remember such things as bricked weed, which had what we called seeds. And there was no such thing as CBD-only smokable flower when I was growing up. That was what happened when someone completely ruined a crop of marijuana. So if you live in a black market like Texas, let's be clear, you're taking it on faith that the strain in front of you is indica or sativa unless you have done the homework to learn how to train your eye, or you really, really trust your dealer and you know all the way down to the farmer who grew it. You probably don't.
In a world where half of the country can go to a dispensary and ask for specific concentrates of various strains, potencies, and molecule ratios, choosing between terpenes and all the crazy products that are out there on the market, it's tough to start learning what we think we know.
Yeah. I know the first dozen times or so that people told me about terpenes, particular molecules, all the various possible health benefits, it was really tough not to brush it off as tall tales. Snake oil, bar talk, fish stories, whatever you want to call it.
But the science is very real. Research is finally accelerating, and we're getting more and more info on exactly how this plant works. What we're coming to find out is our body needs this to regulate all sorts of things. Our bodies actually have a very complex endocannabinoid system that works directly with this plant to maintain balance within our bodies.
It starts to sound crazy. I mean, more than that, it starts to sound like it's a couple of college chemistry classes above anything I ever took in school. It's way past my education. I mean, we're around this issue 24/7, and I still get overwhelmed.
Yeah, me too. That's why it's really important to find the folks who truly know the science behind it and also how to explain it.
Yeah, because it isn't me.
It's not me either. It's Anita Sommers, better known as CBD Genie. She is a veteran, a cannabis patient, and also a scientist who lends her expertise on cannabis to a variety of organizations around Texas.
She's one of the first people to ever really explain to me the cutting edge of the science on this plant and why it is so much more than just a roach somebody might hit after a long day at work. Her medical history with this plant also mirrored the experience of a close friend of mine, and so we connected immediately over her as a patient. But it's Anita's understanding of the science behind why cannabis is being discussed in hospitals, why this issue goes past criminal justice and recreational use, and how truly this is a new horizon in medicine. CBD Genie has always been able to speak to that, and I was really excited to get to have her on.
We're going to try to keep our questioning pretty basic for Anita, but do rest assured that we plan to have her back as a reoccurring guest so that this can be an ongoing series of answers to your questions. In the meantime, however, you can follow Anita or CBD Genie on YouTube. You can also go to her website, thecbdgenie.com. So now let's get into it. Let's start chatting. Anita, how are you today?
So far, so great.
That's fantastic. So Anita, is there any difference between hemp and marijuana, or cannabis as we like to call it?
Yes. Well, first of all, I would like to say that the genus and species name is Cannabis sativa. That's the umbrella that it falls under when you identify this plant. Now, the beauty of this plant is that hemp and cannabis, it's hard to say, not to say the M word, but marijuana, I'll say it just right now, just for the distinctions. They both have all the phytocannabinoids. Phyto meaning plant, cannabinoids meaning the compounds from the cannabis plant. Hemp has 0.3% THC and below. That is the ultimate difference based off of the compound level between hemp and the M word, cannabis, just for those differences. So it comes down to the chemistry, and it comes down to the structure of the plant too. Cannabis sativa L is hemp, and it has a tall, like fibrous plant. That's what it is. Or there's also the indica, the subspecies indica, that has the shrub plants. It's going to have a higher THC content. So the difference simply is, well, I can't say simply at all because this beautiful plant has a lot of variables. But the compound THC is 0.3% and below for hemp.
Wow. So with that 0.3% THC presence being the legal limit,
Right.
how are growers doing this? How is this actually achieved?
Well, there's a lot of strains that are already grown in different parts of this country that have been shown to have that range. But in Texas, we have so many different climates here. So it's going to be difficult until we actually start growing and seeing for ourselves, because we have different climates, different soils. We're going to have to see for ourselves, because with one seed that grows that value of 0.3% THC and below in Colorado might not grow the same here because our climates are different. And those variabilities alter the potency and the yields of the phytocannabinoids.
Wow. Okay. Thank you. So I want to talk about now the difference in CBD products. There's isolate, CBD isolate, and there's broad spectrum and also full spectrum. Can you touch on the difference between what those mean?
Sure. So we'll start with full spectrum. Full spectrum is like nature intended it. Mother Earth, all the phytocannabinoids, all the terpenes, flavonoids. So just one more time, phytocannabinoids, phyto meaning plant, cannabinoids meaning the compounds from the cannabis plant. For example, THC, CBD, CBG, CBN, CBL. There are many. In full spectrum, you will have all that comes in nature, including terpenes that are known for their aromatics, the aroma of a plant. So full spectrum has it all. Broad spectrum is extracting the THC, so you have other phytocannabinoids present, or terpenes, or flavonoids, or mainly phytocannabinoids and terpenes. Isolate is the isolated compound, only that one particular compound. So if it's CBD isolate, is literally the isolated compound, and that's it. So you got the full menu for full spectrum. You've got an extracted THC compound for broad spectrum, and then you have the isolated compound for isolate.
Okay, that clears that up a little bit. So what benefits would you say are missing by not having whole plant regulation?
Well, whole plant, that's how nature uses it, right? It's a protectant. All these compounds work synergistically together. It's the entourage effect. That's how nature intended it, and that's how we should use it, because these compounds mimic our endocannabinoids, anandamide and 2-arachidonyl glycerol, or 2-AG. So if these phytocannabinoids work with our endocannabinoid system, then we should have access to all the phytocannabinoids in nature just the same as they use it to protect themselves.
So with that entourage effect, you're saying that full spectrum would have more benefit than isolate, and
So that gets into now my science hat comes on too. I don't want to say that isolate isn't great. I would just say that my personal opinion, and just based off of the research that I've done, that full spectrum is where it's at, because again, that's how nature uses it. Why not use it exactly as nature does?
yeah. So as a scientist, what are you excited about in regard to the future of cannabis outside of just the CBD versus THC argument within the law?
Oh, wow. So we've just barely touched the tip of the iceberg in learning about cannabis and just everything. I'm excited about understanding how the potency differences in phytocannabinoids are altered via the nutrients, the pH of the water. Are you using natural sun? Are you using LED lights? All these variables are going to alter the potency of your plant. So to really, really understand your plants, you have to have the cultivation steps and see how it works from seed up until harvest. Because the lab is great, but the lab is only going to tell you what the flower is. You need to know all the steps. So I'm excited to be able to see that, as well as it's fun. It's science. Just understanding nature and really getting to know her to a personal level, because when you really get down to it and understand it like that, that's when it becomes personalized medicine.
Yeah. If you could get lawmakers to understand one thing about this plant, what would that be?
Oh, wow. One thing?
Obviously, we want them to learn everything, but if we get them to learn one thing, what would that be? What's the most important?
Actually, right now, with farmers being involved, what's really important right now, as far as having new farmers jumping into this, I've seen it in other states that a lot of male plants were put out in the fields. And with a lot of farmers that are neighbors, that could cause cross-pollination. And that's a big deal. And that can ruin an entire crop. So that's the farmer's time, money, labor, and everything would just go downhill real quick. So that's a big deal. So it comes down to education. And that's where I love to try to sprinkle some knowledge and continue to learn, because we have a lot to learn. That would be one of the issues I'd like to bring up, is education for the farmers. And also, I want to just bring it up because it is a concern of mine when they talk about total THC and the fact that it needs to be 0.3 and below. I just want to mention that there are other THC compounds in the cannabis plant. There's THCA, which is the acidic form of delta-9 THC, the raw form, when you just have a flower in your hand and holding it. That's THCA. It's not psychoactive, but it is THC. So if we're getting the 0.3% and below, and they're incorporating THCA in the weight, that's when it gets a little hairy. So we just need to have the regulations understood a little bit better, where it's beneficial for the farmers. And then actually, I know you said one thing, but I'm going to say one more thing too. I want to sprinkle. Disposing of a crop that's over 0.3% is silly. There's so many benefits and uses for that crop instead of just disposing of it. Industrial, the Texas Compassionate Use Program, giving it to patients. If it's over, give it to patients who are actually able to use it then. Veterans, livestock. There's so many things that the plant can be going to instead of just saying, oh, it's 0.3% above, dispose. That's not right. So that's another thing I would like to sprinkle in there.
Well, not only do they dispose of it when they could be helping patients, but that farmer is now at risk for growing a hot plant.
That farmer is lost, yes.
Yeah.
Correct.
So thanks for touching on that.
Sure.
Anita, in the current state of laws and regulations surrounding CBD products, how confident can we as the consumer be in the products and the quality of the products that we're buying over the shelves, over the counters?
Well, right now, since nothing is really regulated, it's kind of hard to answer that question. That's why I've taken on the mission of education, because the more the consumer knows and the more education that they have, then it'll be easier all around for everyone because if the consumer is educated, then the seller needs to up their game. The number one question I like to have a consumer ask is, do they have a certificate of analysis, or a COA? Most people will just say COA. And a certificate of analysis will have testing of the product. And there's different levels. Sometimes it's just potency, but it doesn't talk about microbials or residual solvents or mycotoxins or all the other potential flaws that could go wrong. Because you have to remember, when you grow in any company, when it goes industrial, sometimes the quality goes down, right? So if you've got industrial, then you might have a problem with pests. You may have a problem with mold. And that's nature. That's just how it goes. So it's important to understand, if you're using this to get yourself back to balance, that you're using quality product. So COAs would be the first question I would tell a consumer to ask. And then just doing your due diligence, understanding what's out there, because the lack of regulation may allow for some products to be out there that shouldn't be.
Yeah, I agree with that. Those are some great consumer tips. Thank you for that.
Mm-hmm.
I want to shift gears slightly. I understand that you are currently working on a new project, Veterans for Smart Farming.
Yes.
You want to touch on that a little bit? Tell us about that.
Yes. So I've been educating all over. And the one thing that people would ask me immediately after is, where do I get it? And because I didn't know farmers personally that are actually here in Texas giving the product, because we can't do that at the moment, it gave me a new mission and a new insight. So Veterans for Smart Farming, the mission is to educate smart, organic, sustainable practices while giving back to the farm-to-table community and bringing ourselves and Mother Earth back to balance. So it's just a small little model place of what the potential this beautiful plant can be. And to be able to bring the community in, have a lab for some research and development, to have fun with the science, that's what we want to do. So I'm really looking forward to that. And any veterans out there, and it's not just for veterans, but I say veterans because Texas is the second largest veteran community in the country, second to Cali, actually. So with that being said, and a lot of veterans in the game, actually, all over Texas, I just want everyone to know that in Copeland, Texas, we have a space that we're working on and want to provide the knowledge and education to get this plant moving forward.
In Texas, I am a civilian. I am not a veteran. I appreciate every single veteran out there, but I want you to know that I'm going out to this space on Sunday with Anita, and I'm excited to get working on that as well.
Yes.
So, Anita, thank you very, very much for your time.
Absolute pleasure.
To all of our listeners out there, thank you so much for your time. Yes. We will talk to you soon.
Thank you.